What's going on, everybody? Figured I'd make a video and just kind of like look over what happened today in the market, look at some setups that I was looking at today. It was a pretty damn boring day. Maybe do some updates on some positions that we have been talking about on the channel, see how everything's played out, where things are working out. Let's start it off with SPY. So with SPY, I have kind of bad service right now, so this video might suck because it's going to take a little bit for shit to load. But, okay, so originally we were talking about SPY having a symmetrical triangle. And obviously, if that's going to be the case, then SPY is looking to potentially be breaking down from that symmetrical triangle idea, which I think I had drawn. I don't even remember how I drew it now. Well, I started changing the idea a little bit, but I'm still going to keep it in mind. On the daily, was this drawn out from the daily or the 4 hour? Oh, yeah. So on the 4 hour time frame, I have like this larger pattern on the RSI here where SPY likes to come down. I lined it up this RSI wick, this RSI wick, and this RSI wick, and then I just pulled it across. SPY likes to come down to this bottom trend line and usually reject at this top trend line here. And as it's getting tighter, it's showing that it still has more to go before it ends up to the end of this RSI. And then whether we break down from it or up from it, obviously, we have to potentially be looking at that. And, you might say like, oh, you can't call it like that because if it breaks out, it's going to be going like up like this. But that's not usually how RSI works. What it would do is say that this comes down after resetting, touches the bottom, goes back to the top, maybe pulls back, and then say it breaks out. That would just mean that the RSI just hangs out up in this area for a bit, which is perfectly fine to do when you become bullish. You can actually hang out up in those levels. SPY doesn't seem to do that too much, but it would be potentially, an idea. Anyway, I'm not like huge on the RSI stuff, but say that did happen, and then this RSI just kind of hangs. It can consolidate like on top of here. Usually when you're in a bullish trend, it does hang out up there, but maybe that won't matter. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking too much about the RSI to even matter, but I'm just trying to look back at like some bullish. Whatever. Anyway, forget that whole idea, but this is just something I am watching because RSI can tell you some shit. So that being said, I have been using it kind of as a guide. When we top up here, usually it shows like a nice top on the trend currently. And then I had this uptrending support on the 4 hour, which did break, which might have been part of that symmetrical triangle idea. And then we bounced off it, and then we broke, and now we're getting a little bounce. So maybe it comes back up and back tests it, or maybe it means nothing and it continues up. That will be left to be said. But for now, I'm kind of drawing this in. I wish I remembered where that symmetrical triangle was so clear from, because I moved the lines. Oh yeah, it must have been off the daily time frame. Let's see. Oh yeah, I think I was going from these wicks. Oh yeah, that's exactly how we had it. Although it looks like it broke it a little bit right there anyway. Maybe that was the first initial like signal. Yeah, maybe that was the signal of the trend break was this first. But anyway, we started trying to make an M pattern here, it looks like, actually, which is not very good. But we did hold some good support either way. Even if we got rid of this and we said, it's not a symmetrical triangle, fuck that. We'll still keep in mind the target of it, as we would have done the same for the upside. But this 404 area is pretty key as well, even if SPY does rip back to the upside. Because when we broke below this area here, you can see SPY broke below, tried to get back above, fell below, double bottomed, tried to hold it as support, it failed, ripped back up eventually, tried to hold it as support, failed, came back up, wicked up, rejected again, closing below. Same story every time. When SPY peeks its head above, it just ends up falling back down. It's never really held it as support. And also, the reason that I like it is because if you look here, this candle, wicks above, body closed below, rejection. That usually is like a pretty key way to find like a solid support. It's somewhere ranging between like even here 404.63 to 405 area. Same deal, body's closed and then rejection. So it's pretty much a range from this 404.18 to 405.16. And even right here, when SPY closed above with a candle body, a daily candle body, it started a nice pump to the upside. And then here we closed a daily above, started the pump, came back to back test it, and we failed. So roughly 404.50 to 404 whatever. Same with when we came down here, we wicked down, caught support, we bought back up, and we ripped back to 430 from 404 to 430. So think about that. It's a good ass move. Even you're just like thinking, oh, this just was a quick pump and then dump. Well, in the matter of like 3 days, it went from 404 to 430. So that was pretty good run. And then, the next key resistance level is probably where we've been struggling. Well, actually, we haven't quite made it there, but we have been struggling in the past. This is going to be key right here because you can literally see body closed, wick came below, bought back up. It continued from 1919 up to 441. Same thing here. It wicked all the way down to 415. Body closed above. Same thing here. Body continued closing above. And then we ripped all the way to 463 in the matter of, like a week, almost a week and a half of a freaking straight rocket moon. So this is what a lot of traders are probably looking for right now. As we're coming back up to retest this area, we want to eventually find support on it. You can see here when we ripped up, couldn't close above, rejected it as resistance, we fell down. So where's SPY right now? Personally, I'm believing it's trying to finally hold this 404.50 as support, and it's coming up pretty close to that area and rejecting, but it's not like it hasn't actually attempted it yet. So I still believe that SPY does need to attempt that. So I think we're going to continue to hold here until we break out. Maybe this will be a descending triangle, which is more of like more bearish pattern. However, it can also be a giant bull pennant, which is also possible. But I am more of like on the bearish. I'm getting more onto the bullish side, but I'm also just being cautious with everything. Like, I'm keeping in mind that we could fall pretty low and blah, blah, blah. If this all fails, this whole idea fails. But I know my outs and I know my bearish idea. Like, I know where this trend starts to get bearish. Really, a break of this trend line would probably confirm it. But also, like, you start rejecting 402.90 and, like, falling below 402.90, getting resistance. I mean, you can even call it this 401.40 area that I have in this box, because this was like a previous area that, like, when we were in this range from down, even from like, I'm pretty much from this 346, we came all the way up and we pretty much struggled in this area. So that's kind of like my line in the sand would be roughly that, starting to reject. Well, really, I guess the clearest thing for us would be to reject under this 404.50. If we came down below it and then started back testing it as resistance, then maybe that means that this thing's flipping and we need to be looking at this hold differently. Something like that. I don't know. We'll have to see when we get there. But I still think there's potentially room to the upside, needless to say. But this video wasn't supposed to be about SPY. I just went on a gigantic tangent, so I probably lost a lot of people's attention. All right, UPST. This is one that I wanted to look at here. If I can get my damn chart to open, this would be awesome. I'm in my car right now. It's getting freaking hot. And I gotta put the AC on. So, let's see, UPST. So, we had a nice run after earnings, and I don't think the earnings were anything special. But there is something that I am kind of looking at as potentially brewing here in this chart. It does look a little bit on the bearish side. Obviously, it's not going to go back up to the old highs. If you look like at this downtrending resistance, though, that we actually broke out of, I believe we broke out of it. Or maybe we didn't quite break out of it. All right, let's look at it like this. We didn't break out of it. Boom, boom. This is still within its downtrend. Okay. We finally got the support buy. We got the support bounce off of this low, and we rallied back to this resistance, the downtrending resistance, which is getting lower and lower and making, it's been making lower lows and higher lows. Now, we started like a little bit of an uptrend. We could draw it from here, or we could draw it from where I had it. But I want to show you guys something pretty cool if we go down and look at the smaller time frames. But the first things first is around this area of $22, you can see that it was an area of previous support. You can see this was support here, ripped back up. It was support pretty much across the trend from like since we were down in these lows, and then 30.71 was a big support at this point of the drop, and the resistance was roughly that 38. But once we broke this 30.71, we never got back above it. We just continued making lower highs. So right now, the first thing that we tried to do was we tried to pop above the $22 and hold it as support. We failed, and we dropped back down. Now, that was the first pump. The second pump, we came up, we rejected at the same area again, 21.93, and we rejected. So right now, we just had our first like kind of red day after this pump. Not a big deal. I was kind of looking for a dip buy in here, and I ended up my plan didn't work out. I kind of wasn't like, I don't know, I didn't do that well today as far as like I wasn't paying attention properly. But what I do want to look at is, so far we had a nice rejection off there, but right now it's starting to potentially make a higher low. You can see this is the first low, this is the second low. Now I want to show you guys something pretty cool that I was looking at before I started making this video. I know I'm all over the place right now, but so this green box that I put in here was, if we pulled this all the way over, you can see that there was some consolidation right here. When we lost this support of $16.50, we dropped all the way down to 12 bucks. We rallied back up. We tried to get back into that same support. We failed, but we found support on 15.30. We ripped back up, got rejected. We fell back. We found support on that 16. Well, was it 16.50 or 16? 17 to 16.80. And then we ripped up. We tried to close above this 18.45. We failed, but we made a double bottom. We ripped up, tried to hold support, and then we rallied. So this green box is important for me because it was an area of previous support attempt and resistance attempt that couldn't get on top of it. This is going to be something critical because if we were to make lower lows, this will be your support. And if we were to find a breakout, we would need to see support on top of this area, which I have it marked out as 1834. So when we rejected here, we did fall below, and we found support at 1766. So for now, we did get a little bounce off of that level, and it might have been a fib or something. If we pulled this down, maybe it's a fib. Let's just check the retracement from this low to this high here. The 0.618 is at 1783. So we basically came down to the 0.618 retracement, and we're getting a nice bounce. That's going to be a good idea for Tuesday when it's a holiday on Monday. This is going to be a good idea for Tuesday to potentially look at that 618 fib. But also, what I'll be looking for would be, let's look at the 5-minute, because this is where I try to enter my trades. So you see my green box? This is what's going on right now. Sometimes you can't always get those lows. Now, if I was paying attention properly today, I would have been charting this out during the time that this was happening, but I just was too busy. I didn't have a chance to do any of that. Normally I can, and I would have been buying this right here and some type of confirmation on a 1-minute. I don't know if anybody does that. I'd be curious to know, but I've gotten pretty good at learning to find confirmations off of smaller time frame stuff so I can get in real early. Like these moves, I'll start adding in here off of these resistances. I draw my trend line across resistance, 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 resistance break, and then I do my resistances. If we had a high here, I'll draw it there. Then when we have our first high, I'll draw my resistance there and pull it across and see how it plays out. That way I'm not like getting in right here because, oh my God, it broke. Because that's not how you can do it. You have to be really, really patient. And then you could draw a trend line support across 1789, because this was all like trying to, you could see right there a little bit of a double top action that was happening right here. Was having a hard time getting above. So I'd want to see this break up. Then I'd have my resistance line. I'd want to see it break that, but also come back, maybe back test this, get above this, back test this, and then I would enter type of deal. But obviously it found resistance there, and then it broke. But now at that point, it broke all of the resistance lines. So then I would have been looking for potentially a back test, which I was never getting. And eventually I'd have to say, you know what? It's still pumping. I'm going to have to take this trade and go for it. I probably would have been scalping like this and like, all right, well, that's where we rejected. Oh, shit, we're closing above that now. This thing just wants to keep fucking going. All right, I guess I'm going to have to jump in. Then I would have jumped in, and you could see that eventually it did give you a nice pullback entry if you wanted to do that as well. That could have been another way. Look for support there, get that pull off of that. But we're still rejecting at this area. So what I'll be watching is, which we're kind of trying to do, but you can see this last candle was a spinning top, which means it's probably not going to hold it. And as you see, post-market, we're back at 1820. So a good support right now would be this 1807 to watch. And then that's probably going to be the area, honestly, to watch on Tuesday will be 1807. I'll be probably looking at that. And then if we do fall below 1807, then I'm going to be looking back to these lows and making sure that this thing does actually end up holding it as support. And if it does, probably do the same deal and do something like this where I can find, an entry scalp. But I think that on Tuesday, the market's going to start off with a little bit of a red dip day, and then we're going to find some support on some previous resistance zones and maybe get a break. But anyway, this is going to be the first thing that I'll be doing, is watching this level on Tuesday. And then if I can get an entry somewhere down there, I'm going to be either that, or I'm just going to wait and see if we can finally find support here, rather than maybe just buying this dip because I knew 1807 might have been a good deal. I probably would, because I don't want to take 1807, then it rejects and can't hold support in 1832, and then it falls all the way back down to 17. So you know what, now that I'm like thinking out loud, I'm not going to buy this dip on Tuesday. I'm going to wait and see if we can find support here and maybe actually create some kind of pattern that I could play to the upside. That'd probably be my play for the for Tuesday. So anyway, I want to keep this one on the radar because honestly, if we do get a breakout, the first thing that we're going to be wanting to watch for resistance would obviously be that 22. But the main key resistance is going to be this $25 area if this was to come straight up like Tuesday or Wednesday. If this works its way back up, then we're going to want to watch that resistance area because that's going to be the biggest breakout zone for UPST. And if it can break that, then you'd be looking at potentially 3071 and higher, because this will be a trend break. This is a falling channel here, so it is potentially going to continue to make lower highs. But I wouldn't mind catching this move from 1830 entry, 1830 entry to 25. And then maybe I'd sell and wait for a break or see what happens up in that range. If it finds support on 21 and actually confirms it, then I would probably stay in. And if it was to break below and retest it as resistance, I'd cut the trade, and I'd know to cut it because that would happen. So that would be the idea for the entry here. Wait for it to, you could sell it at that resistance, but I'd wait for the back test of this. If we bounce, reject again. If with the next time we bounce again, we find support, now well, this might be the support. I can stop loss it below there somewhere, and then maybe I can ride it up to 30 or up to this upper resistance of $40. That would be the overall target if this does break out. So there's a couple ways you could do it. You could get this early entry like I'm going to try to do, which is finding support on my green box, or you could actually look for support on this $22 and look for confirmed support above that. And then if you can actually find support on that, that could be a really good entry as well, finding that confirmed support and maybe get that breakout. So those are a couple ways you can play it depending on how you feel about the market, if you don't trust it, whatever. But I think I'm going to start coming in and start looking at this because I think it's actually getting ready in the coming like weeks or so to get a nice breakout and at least come back up, maybe even as high as like this top of this area here and this double top of 55. That's about as high as I think it would get. I don't believe that we would get any higher than that, but if you wanted to look to like some real high targets, I'm not like too confident that it would even get anywhere in that area, but it would be, maybe to retest this pattern, break down somewhere up in here if you were to get really bullish. But this would be resistance at 71, and then the highest resistance is 91. We're looking to, I think that's stretching it personally. I would be probably pretty much gone, most of my shares in the 30s if I even got it. So that's my idea. That's probably, I'll be scalping it anyway. I'll be scalping in on this. And who knows, maybe it just comes up here and ends up rejecting and then failing the 22, rejecting it, and then dumping to new lows. That's possible as well, because this market can be like that. But we'll know our outs and we'll know our ins. If we can get any type of support finally on top of here, scalped in, that'll be excellent. Until then, I probably won't look for any entries in the lower supports. Maybe if it came down to 1533 again, I would probably buy, because we did have a support here, but then again, the third touch might not be as good. So yeah, I think this is the play for me on UPST. So hopefully you guys understood that. And SiLVERGATE, I did buy some SiLVERGATE today, and I almost got stopped out because my idea that we always talk about on this channel on SiLVERGATE, if I can even get it to pull up because I have no service, it's not going to be able to be talked about today. But SiLVERGATE at 1725, I did buy the 1725. Then it started breaking support after a nice bounce to 18 and then a rejection. And then it actually broke the support. So I was looking on the 4 hour and I was looking at the 100 EMA on the 4 hour. And then I ended up realizing like, hey, that's at 1645. So I'm going to stop loss at 1633. Then it's a little less than $1 risk. And I just put a stop loss there. And then I looked back at the end of the day to see if I got stopped out or not. And we actually ended up hitting 1810 at the end of the day, which was back at that resistance. So I ended up selling like a quarter of my shares that I bought just because, at that point I had to de-risk a little bit. SiLVERGATE might have a chance to break out, but until we can break out above that 1810 and find support on it again, that's where it's going to be. Oh, here we go. Finally, it's going to load up for me. That's where it's going to be a struggle. We got to find that support above that 1810-ish. We did pop up above it, but that doesn't mean too much to me until we find actual support on it. And that's been a struggle for SiLVERGATE. But you can see we bounced at this 1666. We got a very good bounce. The 1666, look right here, I guess when you closed a candle body right here, that rejected it. Maybe it means something. Right here, we had a wick to it, and then we rejected. So that could be something. Maybe I didn't see that originally, but I was always buying that 1725. I still like the 1725. I think it's still a solid support. You can see we made a beautiful W pattern underneath, which is actually pretty good. We started hitting this neckline of that W pattern, which is roughly, I moved the 1740. I moved to 1741, but I had my 1725. I'm still going to keep 1725 there just because of all this action that was over here. So I'm still in on the 1725. I think it's still an amazing support, and we're going to just keep our eyes on it. But if you look here, we actually, before a move up today, we had like a nice little bullish consolidation right here, actually, if you take a look. So maybe this will be something to maybe keep an eye on. I don't know if it'll mean anything. I'm always just 1725 is my level. So maybe I'll add the 1666 as a potential, but I'm still going to always buy the 1725. That one's just been something pretty good for us just because of all this chop right here. Chop, 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 support, and then over there, same deal. We had like a bunch of support right here. It goes back pretty far with that level, but I guess 1666 could be decent too. But needless to say, that was the 1 minute. Jesus. Oh, this was all that chop right here. Multiple candles. 1725, 1725, 1725. So, that's why that was my level. And it's going to always be my level for SI. I'm never going to forget that level. Maybe 1666 will be a new one as well. But now the resistance level that we have to watch is going to be that 1810. There's significance there between there and 1830, and then the high of 1858 based off of the wicks. But the 1810 is there because when we couldn't close candle bodies above it, right here as well, 1830 to 1810, when we rejected to 1725, before the next drop, we rejected right off 1810. And then we came down to 1666. So that's where I got that from. And then finally, we had this downtrending resistance that we eventually broke out. That would have been a nice scalp entry, which, like I said, I was already in at 1725. And then we flagged here on the 1 minute and ripped up. So maybe we come back down and retest the 1725 again and then get a bounce off it. That could be a possibility. That kind of just like shows the buyers that, like, hey, people like me that like that 1725, hey, that's the support. Rip back up. Maybe we can find support on it finally and actually confirm it, sit there for a while, and then we can rip back up and maybe continue on the trend. Maybe, I think it's going to be a pretty good stock throughout the next, few months. I think it's going to have a lot of action, and I think it's going to be pretty popular. So, yeah, that's why I'm okay with continuing to buy this thing until, I guess I would just keep that eye on that 1666 support. That's going to be a new one for me. And stop losses below that, if you do get in at the 1725, that would be a good risk to reward. I'm going to stop it at that EMA. Like I said, look down on the 4-hourly. We have the 100 EMA here at 1643 and the 50 at 1584 in case we were to continue down or something. You can see here also we continued to hold the 100 EMA until you broke it, and then that caused a drop. So we're kind of bouncing off the 100 EMA a little bit right above it. So maybe that's going to happen again. Hopefully we don't get a drop this time. Maybe we get a pop, because now you kind of have this big double top look to it. So maybe overall the stock doesn't look that bullish, but it does give you some pretty good bounce plays. So, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Just use your stop losses, really. I mean, that's going to be my biggest key. And you can see here when we bounced off 1725 last time, we rejected on the 21 EMA on the 4-hour, which was, at that time, it went from 1725 to 1972. So if we got a bounce this time, 1963 is roughly that resistance. So, but now it's come up 24. So I think on the next pop, I'd probably sell more at 1953. That's just kind of my idea for right now, if we can even clear the 1810 and find support. So, I mean, it's not the most bullish looking thing if you look at it like this. You can see that we have the 200 EMA on the 3-hour as well, which is 1915, and we just can't seem to get above it. And this was the one chance we had. Well, not the one chance, but this was a chance we had to actually confirm it. And I thought we might have actually held that as support for once. But we are getting huge squeeze on all the EMAs here between the 200, the 50, the 100. And price is starting to squeeze. So that's why I was thinking over the next couple of weeks, maybe this will end up being pretty good. If all this shit starts pinching, price is going to eventually have to make a move. Which direction is it going to be? That's going to depend on, obviously, Bitcoin and everything else. So this will be something to definitely keep on your radar, because there's going to be a big-ass move coming in it. That's why I'm just going to keep picking up at that support. And maybe I'll add 1666 to my support idea list. So I would just watch that. That's all I'm going to do today because it's too much information between only 3 stocks. I talked too much. I'm sorry, guys. Hopefully this was helpful. Peace.